Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode. In today's episode, I'm joined with Adam, and today's topic is going to be about the mental health surrounding being a podcaster. It's going to be really interesting because me and Adam do quite a lot of work with podcasts and our own podcast, so it's going to be really nice to talk to you today, Adam.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Mason. It's great to connect with you again. I love the episode where I had you on my podcast, Rewarding Conversations. It was a great episode, and through doing it with you, I actually got to connect with other people in the community that have things like Crohn's and stuff like that. So, having you on my podcast really opened a lot of doors for me. So I'm super happy to be here on yours.
Yeah, I did actually see after I was on your podcast, a couple of people I recognised, like
Yeah,
going on
yeah.
there.
I mean, I love the community of podcasters. I think that we have a really great community of people. I think that there's a lot of challenges, and sometimes it's really hard. And you know this, right? It's hard to find guests. Sometimes it's hard to find people to come on your podcast. And you live in a different country than I do, so our time zone is different. We're like a 5-hour difference, and it's tough to find people sometimes. So I'm a really big fan of connecting with people, and then kind of that butterfly effect of seeing who else you can connect with.
Yeah, I think it's great because a person who I know quite well, I think uh, uh, Alana, her name was, she went on your podcast, and
Yeah.
I was her first podcast because she hadn't done one before, and then it was nice to see that she went on yours because she, I think she has a really good story about her, and
Yeah.
like I bet you had a really good conversation.
Yeah, she was great. She was awesome to have on. She was really excited. And when I reached out to her, I specifically said, "Oh, I know Mason," and she was like, "Oh, Mason's awesome." So, it was a great way to kind of that gateway. If you reach out to people and you can say, "Oh, I know a person that you know," it makes the connection, I feel like, a little bit better, and people are more open to kind of coming on your podcast.
Yeah, because like what you said about it's hard to get guests on. It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because so for example, if one week you ask 5 people, you should get at least one response. Well,
Hopefully.
hopefully, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've had times, especially early on in my podcast. I've been doing this a little more than a year now, probably about 14 months, I would say. And I've had times where I feel like I've reached out to like 10 people and I've heard nothing back. And I'm like, this is crazy. And what am I going to do? And then I'll have days where I reach out to 3 people and all 3 of them get back to me. So you never know what it's going to be like, or how things are going to go. But you're absolutely right. We both keep really busy with our podcasts. I release one every week, every Monday at 6 a.m. In the States on Eastern Standard Time. How often do you release episodes?
It kind of varies really because this year I've kind of really started something different with my podcast.
Mhm.
Like, for example, if I don't do any episodes, like this summer, I plan not to do any because I kind of want to break because I haven't really had
Yeah,
one since I kind of created the podcast.
it's a lot.
Um, and like I want to have a summer where I don't have to worry about asking people to come on like but although episodes will be releasing then because I'll have episodes releasing. So what I do is for example do seasonal episodes, so um like Easter, like there was one in spring. So just in case
Yeah,
something happens, because you never know, like with your health, like something might happen, and then at least there's an
yeah,
episode going out. But yeah, for like mental health awareness month, I do have a series,
yeah,
which is called Mental Health Awakening. So like people are going to be coming on there, like talking about different things around mental health, and I've just started doing like mini series instead of like a series. So having breaks from creating new different series relevant, which I think is great. So realistically, I do release them on a series like series 5 when that gets back to starting again. That will be about Monday and Fridays. I do normally release. It used to
okay,
be once a week, but now I do 2.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a lot. I had kind of a chaotic period where in 2 weeks, I think I recorded like 15 episodes in 2 weeks. So I have a whole bunch of podcasts just ready to go lined up for like the next couple months, because it's really, and it's a strange thing to say because I love what I do, right? I love it, and it's the best thing in the whole world, and I'll never complain. But for people that don't do it, it gets very exhausting. It's very tiring, because you not only have to reach out to people, then you have to communicate back and forth. You have to schedule a date and a time, and then when you have people on, it's like, my podcast, I don't have a script or anything like that. I just have conversations with people. So it's, some people are really easy to talk to, and they're, and some people don't say much, so you have to pull it out of them. And I know, at least for me personally, I'm wondering how you feel, but at least for me, whenever I finish a podcast, I feel exhausted. I feel like tired. Do you get the
Yeah.
same way?
Yeah, I do, because it's going back to that time zone thing, I think, because depending on what time you do it, let's say you've done one, like 3 in a day or something like that, and then you're thinking about, oh, if this person, if this is, you're talking to a really talkative person, which is not a bad thing, but
Yeah.
if you have another episode scheduled for an hour later, you're going to think,
Yeah.
oh, I've got to stop, and
Yeah.
you find it
Yeah.
hard to.
Yeah, it can become very challenging. I've had actually times, I remember one day where I had an episode scheduled at 12, 1, and 2. And I will never do that again. I will never do that again, because I think it was the first episode was really talkative, and I kind of had to cut it off and say, hey, I have another one I have to do. And then the second one, it was really tough and they didn't say much, and I had to really kind of pull it out of them. And then the third one was really talkative again. And when I was finished, I was like, I have to take a nap. Like, I have to go to sleep. I felt exhausted, because it's a lot to go from talking a lot to talking a little bit to figuring out what to say and what to talk about and what questions to ask. And it's very, very draining. It's very
Yeah.
exhausting. And people that don't do it, I feel like, don't really kind of understand that.
Yeah, because like sometimes people ask me like how I get all these different guests on.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're the same, because like I've had various other people reach out to me about creating podcasts, because they've come on mine, and
Mhm.
I think that's pretty cool, because like and they asked me for tips to start on a podcast. I would say it's not hard. It's harder the more you think about it, really. Like
Mhm.
the hardest part, I think, if you agree, is creating a name and a logo. They're the two most difficult parts.
Yeah, I mean, I would absolutely say the hardest thing about when I started a podcast was all of the things before I actually started the podcast. You have to have a catchy logo. You have to have, a good name for your podcast. You have to figure out when you're going to release it, how often you're going to release it. And then people forget about logistics. What kind of mic are you going to use? What kind of hosting platform are you going to use? Because you have to use like a hosting platform of some kind. How long are your episodes going to be? What are you going to talk about? What are your topics? There is a lot of work you have to do before you release a single episode. And then I always encourage people to record multiple episodes ahead of time. I actually work with people and kind of help and coach them on how to start a podcast. And, I'll tell people, record, if you can, at least 5 episodes before you release your first one, because you never know what's going to happen. Like you said, Mason, earlier, like you could get sick, or, forbid, something bad happens, to you or in your family or something, like, and you have to stop. You want to be able to have episodes that you can release. And then the vast majority of podcasts, people typically only do a handful of episodes and then they quit. They stop doing it. Most podcasts don't actually continue on past like the first couple months. So I always tell people, like, you have to know what you're signing yourself up for. This isn't just all fun and games. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, yeah. Like like I started my podcast in 2020, and that it feels not long ago, really.
Yeah.
Because but it is hard work. Like the hardest, yeah, like you say, the hardest part is just designing that logo, and having a catchy name, and like having a good mic, having a good
I I
platform.
remember when I sat down to come up with my name, I went through like 1,000 different versions of my podcast name. Did you have a similar experience? Did you go through a lot of different,
Yeah.
names and stuff. And at least for me, I was like, oh, this is a good one. And then I thought about it. I was like, no, that's stupid. And then I was like, oh, this is a good one. And I was like, no, nobody will like that. And I kept like rethinking it and overthinking it. Did that happen to you?
Yeah, because for a while I didn't know what a podcast was at the start, and I changed it. It was, first of all, it was my journey with Crohn's disease and autism, and then after a while I thought that's too relevant to me, and then I changed it to Crohn's and Autism Awareness Advocates. So having a mix up of different things,
Yeah.
and recently actually changed the logo this year, updating it and everything, like updating it to having mental health on the side on the logo, and different. I had a health sign with chronic illnesses, so other people
Yeah.
with not just Crohn's, other things can come on the show. So yeah, it does take a lot of time, but I'm quite lucky that I know I had someone that actually created the logo for me, so I didn't have to do the logo bit.
Yeah, I will say I got very lucky with my logo. I went onto, I think it was like Adobe Design, something like that. And I said, okay, well, I want a color that's a little bit different. So if anybody, looks up my information or anything, it's, you can find me under rewarding conversations. And I wanted something that looked a little bit different. So the blue that I have is kind of a little bit of a different color blue. It's not like a dark blue and it's not a super light blue. It's kind of a different blue. So I like that. And then when I settled on the name Rewarding Conversations, I put the words in and I was like, okay, but I sort of feel like it needs something else. And I went into the little design box and I typed in like conversations, and these two little icons came up, and it was like a person talking and a person talking. And I took it and I put it in and I went, well, I like how that looks. And I just said, all right, I'm not going to overthink it. I'm just going to go with it. It's really simple. It's really straightforward, but I really like the logo because that's how I am. That's my style. I'm not flashy and all that kind of stuff. I'm really kind of just meat and potatoes straightforward. So the logo worked for me. I got lucky with that.
Yeah, I think once you're past that stage, there's still hard parts, like if you're overworking yourself, like
Mhm.
you think that I've got to do lots of episodes this week. So and then you have the stage where if you're doing them in advance, guests may message you saying, when's my episode coming out?
Yeah.
It's been too long, wait.
Yeah, I got that actually. I had one guest in particular that I wanted to wait to release their episode for a little while. And they messaged me and they said, hey, do you still have our episode? Are you still going to release it? And I was like, yeah, I'm still going to release it. And they're like, oh, okay. Well, I was just wondering, it's been a little while. And listen, I understand, right?
Mm.
But at the end of the day, it's like, that I know what I'm doing with my podcast, but I understand when people want to know when their episode's going to come. And some people, I don't know if you've ever had this, but some people actually request that it comes out at a certain time. Has anybody ever done that with you?
No, I never had that.
Yeah, I had people say like, "Hey, can you yeah, I had people say like, "Hey, can you release it on, the second week of April?" And I was like, "Okay, I guess so."
Yeah, that's an odd one. That is, so, like I didn't know. And then you think, hang on a minute, is this a guest podcast or mine? um,
Yeah.
but yeah, like it is.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, does the podcast belong to the guest, or, is it my podcast?
Yeah, it's quite crazy. Um, like I've never experienced that, but it is that is quite. That's interesting. That is.
Yeah. Do you have any kind of pre-podcast routines that you do? Any certain foods that you eat or drinks that you have with you or anything like that?
I do always have some water or blackcurrant beside me, or orange, like just some squash.
I
Um,
always have coffee.
yeah, I do actually have a coffee machine, but like because I think I might have said this on your podcast. I can't remember, but I can drink coffee but decaf. So
That's right. Yeah.
I might have said that. So I love coffee. It doesn't taste any different to me. Like but I always
Nope.
have it in the morning. Really once a day. But I was told if you drink it 3 times a day, that's really good for your health. But
Yeah, I typically, and it's interesting how things have changed over time as well, because I remember my first couple podcasts, I was like sitting in front of my computer ready like a half hour before the podcast started. And I was just trying to think of anything that could go wrong or whatever. And now like I sit down in front of my computer like 5 minutes before we get started. Has that kind of changed over time for you? Do you have kind of the same routine to get started with, or are you comfortable enough that you can just sit down right before we get started?
I am like, because like I do like to be there on time. Like I like to yeah, I like to be on time. I like to be ready and everything. Um, but like, have you had a situation where a guest has not turned up?
Yeah, actually not too long ago, I reached out. So what I always try to do is, and I'm interested if you do this as well, I always try to reach out beforehand and confirm with the guest that they're going to be, typically like maybe a day before. I'll say, hey, just as a reminder, we have our podcast tomorrow. So I actually reached out to a guest and I didn't hear anything back. And I was like, okay, but they accepted my invite, through email. So I was like, okay. And I sit down to start the podcast and I'm sitting there and 15 minutes go by and I message them, and 20 minutes go by and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to get off. And then I got off and got up and then they messaged me and said, okay, I'm ready. And I was very annoyed. I was very annoyed.
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever had a guest not show up?
I have had quite a few that haven't showed up.
Really? I
And
can't imagine. That's so weird that people do that. I'm sorry that happened.
yeah, yeah, like I can understand if it's personal reasons, like if they are like ill or something,
Mhm.
that could be understandable. But if they just forgot, that is it's very annoying, isn't it?
Yeah.
That you're just sitting there. Like I was waiting half an hour for someone and they did turn up. Yeah, but what I do, like before, what I normally I reach out to them, like we confirm a date, and then what I normally do is I will always send the invite a day before, just so they remember. Um,
Yeah.
so uh, um, so I'll send you an invitation email or whatever they prefer, and then just so they have it then, so in case it's not lost like a week beforehand or something. But
Yeah.
yeah.
That's actually a good idea. I send my invite as soon as we have the conversation, and then I send a message the day before. But maybe I should go to the system of sending the actual invite the day before, because I feel like it does keep it more fresh in people's minds. So maybe I'll try that out and see how it works, and I'll let you know how that works for me, because it is frustrating when people don't show up, because for somebody not showing up, it doesn't matter to them, right? It's just a thing they're not doing and it doesn't matter. But to us, it's really important. It's what we schedule our whole day around, right? You know what I'm talking about, right? Like we schedule this big chunk of time around this, and we think ahead about when we're going to release this episode and everything. And when somebody just doesn't show up, it's really frustrating and it feels really kind of hurtful. At least to me, it does. Because we put a lot of time and work into this.
Yeah, it does, because like you say, in your mind you aim to schedule this even before it's even recorded, even before you're on the meet with them. You in your mind, I'm going to schedule that episode May 10th or something,
Yeah, yeah,
and then like you have that specific date, and then it does ruin that. You're really looking forward to that conversation, and then you've got to think, I've got who else am I going to take their place, or or
yeah.
or, or are they going to come back where you don't know. Like a couple of times, I have had to reschedule with the same person because they really wanted to come on, but it hasn't just worked out. And then it does take time, and especially with the time zones, if they're
Yeah,
really big,
yeah.
that can play a part. And even I think last week, I had a was supposed to have a podcast, and I ran late, which I should have done this. I should have done this because I had one. They were like an hour apart, so 10 o'clock my time at night, um,
Oh,
and
wow.
one on 11 o'clock, because this was with different time zones with different people, and we ran over time. And I did pre-warn the next guest that we may be 10 or 15 minutes late, and it was it was annoying, even though they were probably annoyed that I was late. But also, even though I did warn them, but then they said they had to be somewhere at like at a specific time, and I was upset by that a little bit because
Yeah.
I would have rather known. If you told that we maybe could have scheduled a different time. Um, so yeah, like not good on my part, but it would have been nice to know if someone has somewhere
Yeah.
to be in the middle of when we're maybe going to be
Yeah.
doing it.
Is that the most stressful thing about podcasting for you, or like what is the most stressful thing? We're talking obviously about mental health, and I know the things that stress me out, but what would you say for you are the most kind of stressful things about podcasting?
I'd say, well, it is. Say for example, if you're not, I think that would actually be the most stressful. Like if someone didn't turn up,
Yeah.
or you arrange it and they can't make it. But like what is really stressful if maybe your computer's not working or what you're actually on or something.
Yeah, when the internet connection goes bad,
Yeah,
that's really stressful. I use a program called Riverside. And I really like that because it records to your computer separately and it records to my computer separately rather than just recording over the internet. And then it sends me the downloaded copy from your computer to mine. So the internet can cut out and you can still just record and pick it right back up and everything. So I really like that system. It's something that I enjoy quite a bit. But when even when you use that, issues still happen. So that's something I'm always fearful of. Is just I'm like, come on, internet, don't cut out. That's probably internet cutting out is probably one of my most stressful things. Obviously, guests not showing up is really stressful. When people are constantly rescheduling, that's stressful for me. I'll have people reach out to me like 20 minutes before we're supposed to do an episode. Hey, can I reschedule? I'm like, oh, and I'm ready to go and everything. And it's just like, okay, but that's all you can say, right? You can't say no. You have to just say, okay. Um, you know, that's an interesting thing because even though it's our podcast, we're at the mercy of other people. And that's a part of it. When you have a guest on and your podcasts are based around guests, you're kind of at the mercy of the guest of whether you're going to have a podcast or not. So
yeah,
that's kind of a stressful thing, I think, for me too.
yeah. It is stressful. Like the canceling the last minute, like the internet, as you say. Like even if it's their internet, not yours. You do wonder if it is yours or theirs though, because
Yeah. Yeah.
but yeah, that is annoying. Like once I had a podcast and it was really bad. It was really bad internet connection, and I didn't want to say anything to because she was talking, and I I could it was really glitchy it was, and I didn't want to stop it because she was really enjoying it and everything, and
I know about that.
like she's really enjoying it, and I think I just said yeah. I keep saying yeah, yeah, yeah. And
I've done that before too.
even though I don't know what they're talking about or what they're saying, which sounds bad really, but it is hard if you do podcasts and you understand because you don't want to interrupt them, and even though it's a glitchy, some parts may not, but it's hard to tell them.
That is really funny because I know exactly what you're talking about. I thought of somebody that I had on way back early in my podcast where they were talking and I sort of cut out. It was before I was using Riverside. I think I was still using Zoom, and it cut out. And I knew they were still talking, but no volume was being picked up. And I was just like, mm-hmm, yep, uh-huh. And I was like, I don't know what's happening on the other end, but I'm just gonna keep nodding my head.
Yeah.
And it's hard to say like, hey, can you stop talking because nobody can hear you? You don't want to do that. It's weird, right?
No, no, like and then you're thinking maybe we should do this, cut this short, this episode,
Yeah.
and then you find it hard because they keep on talking. They can't, you don't interrupt them.
Yeah, I mean, if people are enjoying being on and they're excited to be on, speaking of that, that's the other side of it, right? Because I also think, talking about positive mental health is really good too. And the other side of it is, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this too, but when you have a guest comes on and they're just so excited, isn't that like the best feeling in the world?
Yeah.
And they like thank you, and they're so like gracious, and they're like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me, this was amazing. And it sort of makes you feel like, okay, I guess I'm doing something kind of cool here, right? If somebody's that excited, do you, I'm sure you have that experience, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Every time before I have a podcast, I always ask the guest, have you been on a podcast before? And the majority of them say no, but
Yeah.
there are some that say, yep, yeah, I've been on a podcast. Um, and yeah, I do like it either way. Like, it's nice when they haven't been on a podcast. They're like, I'm going to be your first podcast you've been on.
Yeah.
Something to remember there. Um, and but if they have, it's even easier. So you don't have to really explain what happens, what the process. You maybe explain how you do things. Like, every podcast is different, but like we said,
Hmm.
that
Yep.
well, ours is pretty similar in ways that we don't have any scripts. We just go in for the conversation. But I have been on various different podcasts which have a list of questions like we're doing, and stuff like that. So
Yeah, everybody's style is different. I totally agree. Our style, I think, is a little bit similar in that, I don't have a list of questions, or, I don't have all these things that I specifically say, oh, I'm going to talk about this and this and this and this. I just have a conversation with somebody, which can make it really relaxed, and it seems very natural, which is great. But sometimes I've been a guest on a podcast where they've said, oh, okay, I'm going to make sure to ask you these 5 things. It's like, okay. At the end of my podcast, I always do the same 5 questions with every guest, so they kind of know that's coming if they've listened to my podcast. But everything else is completely unscripted. One of the things that I always ask my guests in the beginning is there anything specifically that you do not want to talk about? Because I do have on guests that work in different professional worlds, or that they, I've had on, people that have been on the British baking show or the Netflix show Blown Away about glass blowing. So I'll say, are there any certain things you can't talk about because of production and things like that? And they'll tell me, yeah, I can't say this, and I can't say this, and I can't say this. And so I usually try to cover, are there things that we shouldn't talk about
yeah,
ahead of time? But guests almost always say to me, well, what are we going to talk about? And I'm like, whatever we end up talking about. And they're like, well, I don't know what to say. I was like, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. Well,
yeah,
do a lot of guests ask you about that? Like, oh, what are you specifically going to ask me? Or what are we specifically going to talk about?
yeah. Like what I normally say, like, if you're reaching out to a person about what they do, like if it's for Crohn's, if they want to talk about their story, if they work within that area, or stuff like that. So you kind of know, but it's hard if they don't. If they could, it's nice if they tell you a little bit about them beforehand, and what they want to talk about. I always say, like, it's important for they what they want to talk about, not what we want to talk about. Is them. It's
Yeah.
their time to shine. Not, although we people know who we are more than the guest. So it's nice to have. In the past, I don't know about you, I've had a guest, the majority of the pot episode is them talking, and I can't really get a word
Yeah.
in. So
Yeah.
it's nice. So we don't have to talk as much sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. Every episode is different, and some episodes I feel like I'm doing all the talking and asking questions, and some episodes I've had where people have listened to it and they've said to me, you almost didn't say anything the whole episode, because the other guest was talking. And that's cool. I can kind of sit back and relax more.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't have to be so concerned, which is cool.
yeah. Like, because and then I think you're still thinking though, I should be saying something.
I always tell people, like, once again, very similar to what you said, I'm like, the episode is about you. Like, whoever the guest comes on for me, and like, this episode is about you. It's not about me. People know who I am. They know what my podcast is. I don't have to go over stuff about me all the time, So it's nice when I can connect with somebody, when people have things that are in common with what I like. But I also, and I'm curious, do you ever do this? I also like to have guests on that are complete opposites of me, that are totally different than me. Like, I am not a religious person at all. I am not religious whatsoever, but I had on somebody recently who was an evangelical person. So they were very, their faith was very important to them, and a lot about their life was based around their faith. But I'm not religious at all. So it was a really interesting conversation. And before I had her on, I just said, hey, this will be great to do as long as we're respectful towards each other. As long as you don't tell me I'm wrong, I don't tell you you're wrong or anything like that. I'm very interested to talk to you. Do you ever have guests on that believe or think or do things that are completely different than you?
Yeah, I have had a couple of conversations that there was this one conversation where I didn't also agree with something that they were saying, but I couldn't do anything about it. So I just said, like, you're doing what's right for you.
Yeah.
Um, but like in linking, I like to link hobbies quite a lot into my podcast. Um, well, it's not the actual conversation. Like anyone who likes Doctor Who always sees the blue box in the background. So
Yeah.
sometimes we had the old conversation about that. Um, but it's nice when you don't know they like that, and then they come on the show, and then they say, "Oh, I like something that you do," and then you kind of go,
So something really funny that I have to mention is I'm not like a Doctor Who fan. Like I've seen some things here and there, but I'm not like, how you are
"Yeah,
about it. But I was literally having a conversation yesterday with somebody about Doctor Who, which was really funny. And I found out about a type of character for the first time ever, and they scared the bejesus out of me. It's what were they called? The Weeping Angels? Is that what
yeah,
they're called?
yeah."
Those things that like cover their okay, so the person that I was talking to showed me some clips of them, and I was like, "This is the scariest thing I've ever seen in my life." I remember I had never heard of them. I had never seen them before, but I saw some like clips of them, and I just remember thinking like, "This is really, really scary." So, and when we were talking about it, I thought of you because I know you're a really big Doctor Who fan. So I was like, I got to mention this to Mason.
Yeah, yeah. Like I was like because the Weeping Angels when I was growing up watching Doctor Who was one of the ones I was petrified of, and I
Yeah,
remember when I was younger I went to a Doctor Who experience, and I didn't blink because if you blink they move. So
yeah.
I said to my mum, to my dad, don't blink, and they thought I was joking. I weren't joking. I've been serious.
You were serious.
I didn't blink the whole entire time going through like it was really dark and everything,
Yeah.
and I was deadly serious. But yeah, like I do
That
love
was that was funny. Yeah, I watched that and I was like, nope, I don't want to watch any more of this. These are these are scary. They freaked me out.
yeah this they are like nowadays are not. I don't think monsters in Doctor Who are as scary as they used to be, but it would be nice if it was as scary. Like,
Yeah,
if you're growing up and you're watching the Weeping Angels, you're probably petrified of them or any of them.
yeah, definitely creepy. But that's a part of it. That ties back into mental health. I feel like is taking breaks. Watching things that make you happy, doing things that make you happy. Because I can tell you, I have had times and days and weeks where I've recorded a lot of episodes and I've scheduled a lot of things and I've, because people also forget there's all the post production. We got to go on, we got to edit episodes and we got to do stuff with sound and we got to upload it. And we got to schedule when it goes out and all that kind of stuff. It's really exhausting. It's a lot goes into it. And, it's something that we take very seriously and, it is tiring for us, but I know that I love it. And I think that you love it too, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
and that's what matters at the end of the day is we're doing things that we love and we're very lucky, I think.
that's it. Yeah, we've got to do what we like to do, and I think it is important to have breaks as well.
Yeah.
Like you say, like stuff we're interested in, and do that in the spare time. Because like you say, spend lots of time doing it. Like it takes time even after you've done an episode. Like you've got to write it out. What you got to call the episode
Yeah.
as well. Like I don't know about you, but you can have call an episode a different name or is that what you do? Do you
Yeah.
name the episode?
Yeah. I name all of my episodes and I have a certain way that I name them. And I have to come up with interesting titles. I have to come up with catchy, words and tags that's gonna, make it picked up. And then social media is a whole other thing. I have to post about it on Instagram. I post about it on Facebook. I have to try to engage my audience, answer questions. It's, if you really want to do it like seriously, there's a ton of work that goes into it. But I'm always willing to help people. I've worked with multiple people and helping them kind of get their podcast off the ground and giving them advice and stuff. I certainly don't know everything, but I think you and I have been doing it long enough where we can kind of, give advice and say this worked for me and this didn't work for me.
Yeah. Do you do it as like a job, or is it something you just do in your spare time, like Adam?
It's transitioning to a job because I've gotten some sponsorship stuff and I've gotten some paid sponsorship stuff and people sending me things, and so it's transitioning to that, and I would love to do it full time someday. That would be really, really cool. I also do filmmaking on the side. I just made a movie a couple days ago. I would love to be able to do that full time, and I think I'm getting to the place where I'm going to be able to hopefully someday do both of them full time.
Yeah,
That would be cool.
There's always something to think about, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
we want to get paid for doing this stuff.
And we should, right?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
should get paid and
Yeah.
everything. Like, it'd be nice to have our own T-shirts of your logos. Different people
Mhm.
can get one, and that kind of makes your podcast even bigger in a way to that other people like to say to their family, "Oh look, I've been on this podcast. I have a listen."
Yeah. Well, I think doing things like this is good because, this for you, it reaches more of like an American audience having me on. And for me, it reaches more of a UK audience being on yours. So, those are good things too, of, having people on from different countries and different states for me, and, different things like that. So I think that's really helpful for helping to grow a podcast too.
Yeah, yeah. I enjoy talking to different people from different countries as well, because it's nice because different accents. Like in America, you won't hear probably my voice as like me as much. uh, and the same with you in the UK.
Yeah, exactly the same. Yeah, it's fun. I love it. I enjoy it. And like I said, I feel like I'm very lucky, and I can't wait to see kind of what happens in the future.
Yeah, yeah. It like when I started my podcast, I didn't think it would go along as it has.
Yeah.
Because it's more something to do. It was during the start of the pandemic, and
Yeah.
it was something to do and learn about it. And then as far as it's gone now, and then I thought, hang on a minute, like people are saying it's good. I'm doing something right.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a surprising thing, right? The same thing happened to me. I was like, oh, I guess I should keep doing this. I didn't know how long this would go or how far it would go, but I was like, okay, yeah, I guess I should keep doing this if people like it.
Yeah, yeah. It's nice because you speak to a different person probably every week.
Yeah.
More than one person every week.
Yeah.
So
Sometimes 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people a week,
yeah,
which is a
yeah.
lot.
Yeah, and what I normally like to do is like I like to schedule episodes the week before for the next week. So
Hmm.
so I don't just do because I arranged one with someone a few days ago, and that they were saying I'm free today or yesterday it would have been, and I said I looked at my schedule and I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So I have to say we have to do it next week, because like as we're recording this, it's near enough Easter, so
Hmm.
I actually want to have a few days off.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
don't know about you.
Yeah, no, it's nice to take breaks. That's why I try to record them in big batches. It's really stressful, frustrating, and tiring, but then I can kind of give myself a break and not have to record for a while, which is really nice.
Like from at the moment, Adam, how further forward like have you got episodes going to?
I think I have episodes recorded through, I want to say maybe June or July.
Hmm,
Yeah, so probably the next
sure.
like 2 or 3 months I have episodes recorded for.
Um, that, I think that's really good because
Yeah.
like I've got mine going to July, like mid July at the moment. So yeah, and then and then next month or in May, I do want to do episodes for August.
Yeah, I always encourage people, record as much ahead as you possibly can. You can never record too far ahead. So I always tell people, I'm like, just do as much as you can up front. It'll make later so much easier.
And what you got to think about, to everyone listening, and it is really much true, this is because if you watch a TV series, you think how long it takes them to record a series. Like it takes probably a year to do one
Yeah.
series, and then they release that the following year or something.
Yeah.
Or like when the current series is on. So it takes that amount of time. So like podcasters are lucky because they don't probably wait as long as that. Like a few months is very good compared
Yeah.
to when a TV series. So they are pretty similar in ways, but
Yeah. Early on was very stressful for me when I would only be like a week ahead of time. When I only had one podcast ready to go and I was scrambling to find somebody to come on, that was very stressful.
Yeah. I never used to do in advance. So I'll do one this week, I'll do another one next week, and then before that's how we're gonna be.
Yeah.
And then I don't know about you, but when I started off, I didn't have any guests to start with. I just did it with me.
Same thing. Yeah, I did the same thing. Yeah, my first like 5 episodes or 6 episodes was just me.
Yeah, and then I just thought people could get bored of hearing my voice.
Exactly. That's what I
Yeah.
thought too. I was like, people want to hear other people, not just me. So, and then I said, oh, I'll bring a guest on, and then I'll bring another. And then I realized, okay, that's what my podcast is all about.
Yeah, I think it is good. Like, what is one of the most things that you enjoy about having a podcast, Adam?
I mean, I've gotten to meet so many amazing people. That's really it. I like people. I like meeting interesting people, and I've met people from all over my country. I've met people from all over the UK. I've met people from Africa. I've met people from Asia, Australia, South America. I mean, I've met people from all over the world, and that is really been the coolest part for me. I've had people on that were teachers. I've had people on that were doctors. I've had people on that were therapists. I've had actors. I've had Broadway people on. I've had people that were on Netflix shows. I've had people on that were, performers and dancers and choreographers. And, I've had people on from all walks of life that have done all kinds of different things. And I've learned things from these people, and I've discovered new things. And I think, to me, that's the best thing, is having people on that I get to meet from different countries and different states that do different things than I do. And that's the best. That's my favorite part of the podcast. What about you?
I've got to say that's the same. Like just meeting new people. I think
Yeah.
that's the highlight of it. That's the thing when it's out there, and they're gonna be happy about it. I've had actors. I've had people working in in their jobs around, like even supporting people like around Crohn's, like patients working when they do be doctors and stuff like that. I've actually had an actor from Doctor Who
Oh, that's cool.
on the show, and that was a Christmas episode that was last year. He played an actor. It wasn't, I wouldn't say one of the main ones, but he was in a few episodes, so it was
That's
nice
awesome.
to talk to him. So I like that. And yeah, it's nice to have like people as well as you keep in contact as well. I don't
Yeah.
know about you, but I don't like to once they've been on. I don't like to brush them aside. Like I always catch up with them sometimes.
Yeah, same for me. Yeah, I do the same thing. It's nice just to reach out to people to ask them how they're doing and stuff like that.
Yeah. Although we do get quite busy, but it's always nice to reach out to people, or sometimes I'll say like want a little catch up, and then we'll have a call for an hour or so and see how you doing.
Yeah, exactly. I love that too, and that's definitely my favorite thing, is just getting to meet new people.
Yeah, but the most stressful. We've talked about what the most stressful things are.
Yeah, there's great things, there's stressful things, but I think at the end of the day, tying it back into mental health for sure, is you need to find a balance. You need to know what you can do to relax yourself. You need to know how to walk away from it if you need to do that, because sometimes walking away is really important. But you need to have an understanding of how to keep yourself in the right kind of mindset and not get too stressed out and not worry about too many things, and knowing when to take a break. I think those things are really important, and people forget that a lot of times, and I forget that sometimes, to be honest. I just will go and go and go. But knowing when to kind of take a step back and take a break, I think, is really important, and it's something that um I love doing, and I want to continue doing, and I feel like I have a good handle on it right now.
Yeah, yeah, I agree because like although like would you say have you had a break like like a long like a month or so break as like when you have a break like how long would you say that break is?
Yeah, my longest break I've taken is actually right now, because I have episodes scheduled out through the summer. I haven't recorded an actual new episode, I think, in about a month. Which is the longest break I've ever taken, but it's because I recorded like 10 episodes or 12 episodes in like a week and a half.
Yeah,
So that's, that 12 episodes, that's 3 months. That's 3 months worth of stuff right there. So that's, it was a lot, and it was a really stressful couple weeks. And then after that, I just said, like, all right, I'm taking a break. I'm stepping away from it.
yeah, yeah. Like I have plans for up to in my head. I have plans what to do up to the end of the year. I don't know about you. It's just in my head. What I'm gonna do? When I'm gonna do it?
Yeah. Yeah, I have a lot of plans and things I would like to do, but I always try to plan to be surprised too. If
Mm,
anything comes along that's interesting or surprising or cool, I'm always open to those things.
yeah, yeah. And these mini series that I've started doing, um, like Mental Health Awakening and other stuff that I want to do besides doing an actual series, is I kind of like to surprise people. So I won't tell it like the followers or people who do it until closer to the time, and then it gets more exciting then.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I totally get that. And it's good to get people excited for future episodes and things like that. So I always try to post things ahead of time to get people excited for kind of what's going to come next.
Yeah, because like if an episode's gonna be like even if like an episode has like 6 plays or like that mountains up like each week
Hmm.
to get 'em more. But at the beginning, I didn't really expect to have as many listeners as I do now. So I'm pretty surprised about that.
Yeah, I think I just crossed 50 episodes, which is really cool. So that's something that means a lot to me, and I've been doing this a lot longer than I ever thought that I would, and I want to try to do it as long as I can. I want to be able to do this as long as I can and meet as many interesting people as I can, and have people on to tell their story, because that's kind of what my podcast is all about. Rewarding conversations is just about people coming on because everybody has a story to tell.
That's it. I think that's great. But like Adam, before we go, is there anything else that you want to say to finish up?
um I would say, if somebody out there is listening to your podcast right now and they are interested in starting their own podcast, it might seem scary, it might seem really difficult or hard, but you can reach out to people like me, to Mason, and we can help you with things, and we can give you advice with things. Check out my podcast, Rewarding Conversations. Give it a listen and see if you like it. You can always reach out to me. And then in terms of mental health, I would say, kind of as my final thought, is it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to say that you're struggling. It's okay to say that you're stressed out. It's okay to say that you need a break. There's nothing wrong with that. And people need to understand that. There are people that have been podcasting for years, that make their living off of it, that are wealthy and everything. And now they're talking about they need a break sometimes and they need to walk away sometimes. So whether you're just starting out, or whether you've been doing it for a couple years like Mason and I, or whether you've been doing it for 10 years, it's okay to say that you need a break. It's okay to be stressed out. And there's a huge community of us. Reach out to us, talk to us, ask our thoughts and advice on things. It's great when we connect with each other. I had the pleasure of meeting Mason, and I was so excited to come back on here. Thank you for having me, Mason. What you do, I think, is really fantastic, and I'm a fan of yours for sure. And I just wish you nothing but the best, and I really appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Adam, because like I enjoyed coming on your show, and I think it was nice to have you on my show today because like
Yeah,
I'm a fan of your show as well. Like I've seen some really good guests come on your show, even though
yeah.
I've known a few. I think another one that has come to my head is Riley, that I think came on your show as well. So
I've done 2 episodes with
yeah,
Riley. Yeah.
yeah,
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 she was really great, and that's what I mean. It's an amazing community, and you can meet some really cool people, and you can connect with people, and it's a really beautiful thing if it's done properly. And I just think that we need to continue to support each other, and reach out to each other and talk to each other, which is exactly what this is. So thank you, Mason, for having me.
that's it. And like I think I always like is to have the guests come back as well. So I think that's great. So who knows? We probably might do this again, Adam, another time.
I would love it, and I definitely want to have you on in the future of my podcast. I'm going to kind of start circling back and having on some early guests come back on. So I would love to have you on in the future, and we can kind of see where everything is from my side.
Yeah, yeah. I think I'm going to start doing that again as well.
Cool.
Like for former guests coming back on, seeing how we're
Yeah,
doing a couple years
yeah.
later.
It's a fun thing to do. But this is really cool, and I definitely appreciate you having me on.
Definitely. Well, thank you everyone for listening or watching for wherever you are in the world, if it's America, the UK, or anywhere. But I hope you've really enjoyed this as much as me and Adam have. So thank you, Adam. It's been great.
Thanks, Mason. Appreciate it. Thanks everybody for listening.